All right, so to go ahead and get this started, we're going to talk about zero trust today. But before we even get into that, let's just acknowledge a couple of things. Well, one main thing. Cyber crimes are at an all-time high, and they're only going to keep going up. Remember, technology at this point has been integrated into borderline any and every facet of our lives. I'm talking we can carry our personal health information on our phones, emergency contacts. If you all of a sudden get hauled to a hospital, all someone has to do is look in your phone and or I think with limited information, but they might still need a passcode or something, but they can get in touch with emergency contact with like health information in there. Our smartwatches that track our health, fitness, different things, blood types, height, weight, race, of course. With work, we can work, depending on your job, you can work from anywhere in the world at this point. Technology is all over the place, bottom line. So, with that said, with technology only going to further increase in the integration into our lives, me personally, I'm from San Diego, so another example just popped into my mind. In downtown San Diego, I saw on the news that they either have started implementing or will start implementing like giant mirrors or screens that can be used for like mapping and different things, when you're kind of just walking around and looking for stuff. Yeah, technology is it's all over the place already. And it's only going to increase, right? With that said, that means opportunities for cyber crimes are going to increase along with our use of these different pieces of technology. So this affects us both personally and professionally. Of course, we're going to mainly talk about professionalism here. And one of the main things you have to understand when it comes to corporate information, confidential information of all kinds, is that it's not merely strangers that may end up doing damage to you. In fact, as I've talked about this before, the people that you let into your organization, the people you let close to you in that professional space, they may be the ones that end up doing the most harm to you and your company/brand, especially if they have a chip on their shoulder. This is when we're going to introduce the concept of zero trust security. Zero trust security is the model of security that pretty much is running the entire tech market right now, right? And because of people that were able to suddenly work remotely or even hybrid model, but more so remote than anything, the zero trust security model was implemented so that you'll be able to access your corporate and confidential information, but you have to be authenticated, authorized, and validated multiple times before you can access these resources. Because with people now being able to work from a distance, there are some companies, new ones that have sprung up, where they don't even have physical locations for the organization to meet. So if you want to work from home like I do, if you want to go to a WeWork space or some other space that provides a professional setting where you can just pay a small fee for the day, you can do that. But there are certain companies where they're decentralized. They don't have a centralized location or a handful of headquarters, neither on a national level nor an international level now. So zero trust had to be implemented so that we would be able to tell who's behind the screen. Like, I'm not there for you to see that information. So now we have to be double, triple sure, and then some about who's trying to access company resources, when, and why. Like I already clarified, zero trust security is the best fit for the modern world. Yes, there are some companies that are already 100% back on site with their work, meaning their employees have to go on site every day, Monday through Friday. You have some that have a hybrid model where you may spend 2, 3 days in the office and then the other 2 days or 3 days at home. That works. You have some that claim to have a hybrid model, but like you have to be on site 4 days a week and then one remote. You might as well just go on site at that point. That one's dumb. That's dumb to me. If we're not minimum working from home 2 days a week, you might as well not even call yourself hybrid. Just yeah, that's dumb, right? Then you have remote, which is the main one everyone is going after. Some companies, they may not be remote anymore, but they're trying to meet a happy middle ground, hence why they're going for the hybrid model, which I think is still good. But many people, if not most, would probably still prefer a remote model over hybrid or completely on site, right? So that's where you have people, they're able to travel at their leisure. They can work from a whole different country. I know someone that does that. They're in Asia working for a business or for a position where they have to work on hours based here in the States. Yeah, those type of situations. You have people, and people have joked about this on social media. I don't really see it like that anymore. But I know people, like when I go to the coffee shop that's not far from me, there are people there on their laptops around the clock, or at least whenever I go in there in the afternoons during the work week. And yeah, you got people that can work that way, not from home. People have joked about going to get hair appointments and all this other stuff. while they're working, whatever the case is. It's a bunch of stuff, you know. It's become pretty commonplace at this point. So zero trust security allows people to do those type of things and to move how they want to move and even work as they travel. Some work while they're vacationing and all this stuff to a degree. You know, it just allows people the extra freedom and flexibility to be able to do that so that they're not pinned down in one physical location, especially when they don't have to be to get their work done. Okay. And while that's great, keep in mind, again, this opens up a whole new host of problems, especially when it comes to impersonating somebody, because we are not able to see you face to face on a regular basis, assuming we're not on like a Teams call or something like that. So now you have mainly impersonation, where if someone's able to get your credentials, your confidential password, username, and all this other stuff, maybe even a company phone, because then you have multi-factor authentication or MFA there. So you may have, or two-factor authentication, you have that as well. But either way, they can just get hands on like certain pieces of tech, get your confidential information, your credentials, all this stuff, and now they can log on to your company computer, pretend to be you, and start doing damage and send out faulty messages and all that stuff. So to prevent that from happening, zero trust security has been implemented so that people can safely access their company resources without there being any doubt, or at least minimal doubt, that they are who they say they are. They have access to the information that they are claiming they want to access, and that nobody's coming into the system and trying to take information out of the company's system that might be confidential about the clients, about the company themselves, or the employee. So the number one question is, why did we move away from the older model and move into the zero trust model, which has only been implemented as of a few years ago? So real quick, the model that preceded the zero trust model was called the trust but verify model. This allowed people, when they, because more times than not, everyone was still going every day to a corporate location to do their work every day prior to the pandemic kicking off. So the trust but verify model allowed corporations to basically, if people were close enough to the company location, the corporate office, you know, whatever warehouses they were at, whatever the case was, if employees were close enough to that location, then they would be able to access the systems and the information that were proprietary or confidential to the company, because there was no other reason for you to be that close to that company location. I'm sure there are other things they had to do. I'm still sure they had to put in passwords. They had the key cards when I got my first contract out of college. I won't say the company, but we also had like the key cards to authenticate ourselves and different things. But two-factor authentication and multi-factor authentication weren't used for us. Even when we logged on our corporate laptops, on our company laptops, of course we weren't remote at the time, but we didn't have to have a company phone where we would get a number dinged to us and we have to put in that number, and then it would truly authenticate us. That didn't come into play, at least in my experience, until after the pandemic had hit. But prior to the pandemic, we just had our key cards where we would scan into the car garage when we were parked in the morning. When we get into the building, we would use that and get in through the gate, the entry point into that, and that was pretty much it. You can go about your day. There was no reason to have two, maybe three layers of security on a regular, everyday basis. Once we transitioned into a period where people were able to primarily, if not fully, work from home or just anywhere else, they had to stack a few different layers of security on top of each other to make sure that we actually knew who we were dealing with. So you're not just putting in a username and password and saying, okay, cool, you are who you say you are. Now they have, for example, VPNs, something else we'll talk about later on, where you need to connect through a VPN in order to access company information. If you don't have a company phone where you can get that number dinged to you and put in that number, you won't be able to access company resources. Even if you do that, there have been times, even in this past week, where I try to access company resources after I connected via VPN, after I logged into my laptop. And if I try to go into our ticketing system or our asset management system, I would still get that screen of, hey, we're going to send you an alert. We're going to send you a number. You get to input this number to prove you are who you say you are, right? So that way they know for a fact I am who I say I am and I'm not being impersonated. So that's the current model that we're at, but that's also the trust but verify model. That's where we used to be only a few years ago, not even 5 full years ago. And we've moved away from it because the way the world is now, and now that the concept of remote work has been introduced to people, chances are it's not ever going to be 100% gone. It's very unlikely. Many companies are trying to crack down on it because they already had these big old corporate offices in place, the towers, and all these things, and they couldn't let it go to waste. It would be a waste of money. So those are the companies that started dragging those uh, their employees back on site because not using those buildings would end up becoming a big expense for them for no reason if people weren't using it. But I think now that the concept of remote work and the point has been proven that working remotely actually increases productivity. Like people get their work done in a fraction of the time, it increases efficiency. Believe it or not, it actually, in a way, has stabilized or increased necessary communication. People are a little more picky about, what communication is necessary for the job and all this stuff. They're also quicker to get to the point. So you do training via Teams, team meetings, which is pretty consistent. In my case, it's one every 2 weeks or so, one-on-one meetings, all these things, right? It's a lot easier for people to stay on task and to be more mindful of their time when you don't necessarily have to meet this person or to meet these people to get your job done and to have a decent level of camaraderie, or at least act cordial with your teammates as well as your management. Last detail I'll throw in is that the zero trust model now requires security personnel, particularly, to continuously monitor the devices and network traffic of their employees and of their devices. This pretty much goes back to what I said earlier about how it's easier to impersonate somebody as long as you get hands on their laptop, their phone, and get a few pieces of confidential information, username, passwords to log in, and a few other things, right? So now, in addition to that, if someone was successful in impersonating you and logging into your work laptop or using your work phone for something, if they're able to monitor the traffic going in and out of, let's say, your company email account, they're able to see if you're trying to download something on your company computer, which I don't know about you guys. On my company computer, I'm not allowed to. I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of the general thing across the board. If you're looking at websites and things that don't have much to do with work and they're able to see that, and then it's not balanced out with you doing actual work, because I never got dinged for that. And every once in a while, my manager and I will talk personal stuff and we'll start going to different websites that have nothing to do with work. But the bulk of our time is dedicated to work. So I'm pretty sure, the security team for our company can see that, right? But if people are monitoring your traffic and they're like, this person's trying to download something, they're logged in at a time when they shouldn't be. That's another detail. They're trying to send information to people that is outside of the organization. It doesn't have a recognizable domain. These, like, the company, you know how emails have company names on them, 123 at McDonald's.com, for example, right? And they have that company domain. That's what that's called, a domain. Like, they'll look at it and be like, well, we don't have a customer with this domain. This is a Gmail domain. That's personal. We shouldn't be sending that out. Or that's iCloud. That's most likely personal. We're not supposed to send that out. Or they're trying to download stuff. That's where data loss prevention, or DLP, comes into play. All these different factors. And security teams have to monitor all this because people aren't as close physically as we used to have to be to get our work done, which again creates more opportunity for people to find a way into your system and start wreaking havoc. So hopefully that was enough information for you guys. I hope that was helpful. If you got any feedback for me, go ahead and leave it in the comment section down below. I appreciate you guys for showing up here with me again. Talk to you later.